or information provided to donors. In some situations, the donor must obtain certain information for the donor organization to pay deduction, charitable contribution, or other situation. Donor organization is donee required to provide the information for the donor. Charitable organization must give the donor disclosure statements for the quid pro quo contribution over $75. See disclosure statement the payment the donor makes and the charitable party for the contribution partly for the good service and the quid pro quo contribution below. For example, the failure to make the required disclosure may result in penalty for the organization. The donor can deduct the charitable contribution from the $250 or more unless the donor has a written acknowledgement from the charitable organization. In certain circumstances, an organization may be able to meet both of these requirements with the same written document. Disclosure quid pro quo contribution. Charitable organization will provide with a written disclosure statement with the donor for quid pro quo contribution over $75. Quid pro contribution. Contribution for the donor exchange for the good of the services known for the quid pro quo contribution. The charitable organization must provide with the donor a written statement informing the donor of the fair market value of the items and services provided with the exchange for the contribution. Generally, written statement required for each of the payment with wherever the contribution portion is over $75. Example: if the donor gives $100 to receive the concert ticket available to $40, the donor has a quid pro quo contribution. In the example, the charitable part of the payment is $60. Even though the deductible part of the payment is in more than $75, a written statement must be filed because if the total payment is more than $75, the organization fails to disclose quid pro quo contribution. The organization may subject to penalties. Disclosure statement: the required written disclosure statement must inform the donor amount of the contribution deducted for the federal tax income tax purposes, limited with excess for any of the amount of value of any of the property other than money contributed with the donor or other fair market value. Good services provided with the charity and provide with the donor with a good faith estimated with the fair market value of the goods and services of the donor received. Charity must furnish the statement in conjunction with either solicitation or the receipt. With the quid pro quo contribution, the disclosure statement furnished with the connection with the particular solicitation is necessary for the organization to provide another statement when the actual receipt of the contribution. No disclosure statement is required any of the following: the goods service to give the donor with the have substantial, insubstantial value described in Revision Protocol 9012 or 1991 CB 471 Revision 1990-12 Revision Protocol 9249 1992 for January CB 507 adjusted with the inflation of Revision Protocol 9249. There is no donative element involved with the particular transaction with the charity. For example, there is generally no donative election involved with the visitor purchase for the museum gift shop. There is no intangible religious benefit provided with the donor. Intangible religious benefit that must be provided with the donor organization organized with exclusive the religious purpose must be of type of the general is sold with the commercial transaction outside the donor to kind of tax. For example, the donor who with the payment the granted admission religiously ceremony if they wish for the non-avert admission charge to provide with a tangible religious benefit. The donor is provided with a tangible religious benefit for the payments for the made tuition for the educational leading for the recognized degree of the travel services and consumer goods. The donor makes a payment of $75 less per year and receives only an annual membership benefit that consists of any of the rights of the privileges other than those right to purchase tickets to the college at the athletic events. The taxpayer can extract the other often during the membership period, such as the fees and the discounted admission for the parking and preferred with the access to good and service admission event for the open only to members of the cost of the per diem. Per person, in which with the limits for the low code for the article the description revision 9012 adjustment inflation procurement revision procurement 9012 good faith estimates for the fair market value and an organization or FMV fair market value FMV organization can use the reasonable method of estimating the fair market value of the goods and services provided with the donor as long as it applied with the method of good faith. The organization can estimate the fair market value of the goods and services readily aren't commercial against available until the fair market value similar comparable goods or good services may be similar or comparable to even if they don't have a unique quality of the goods and services being valued. Example, the charity provides a 1-hour attendance license for the Tennessee professional for the first 500 payment if it receives $500 payments or receive the tennis professional provides 1-hour lessons for the commercial basis for $100. A good faith estimate is less than the fair market value is $100. Alright, example 2. For the payment of $50,000, museum allows the donor to have the private event with the room with the museum. At the good faith estimate, the fair market value right to hold the event with the museum can made with the use and content with the rent of the hotel ballroom with the capacity of amenities, atmosphere comparable with the museum room, even though the hotel ballroom lacks the unique display with the museum room. If the hotel ballroom is $2,500, a good faith estimate of fair market value with the right to hold the event is museum is $2,500. Example 3. for a payment of $1,000 of the charitable provided the evening tour of the museum conducts the well-known art. If the artist does not provide the tour for the commercial play, so the tour of the museum normally at the free of the public of the good faith estimate of the fair market value of the evening tour museum tour is $0 even though it is conducted by the artist. Alright, penalty for failure to disclosure. Penalty imposed for the charity does make for the required disclosure of the quid pro contribution from more than $75. The penalty of $10 more contribution not exceeding $5,000 per fundraising event mailing. The charity can avoid the penalty if it can show the failure with due reasonable cause. Alright, acknowledgement charitable contributions of $250 or more. Donor deduct for the charitable contribution of $250 more than the donor written with the accommodation of the charitable organization. The donor must give an acknowledgement earlier of the date of the donor filled for the file of the original return with the year of the contribution made the due date, including the extension of the filing of the return. The donor responsible for requesting and obtaining with written acknowledgement from the donor, the charitable organization received the payment made with the contribution attributed to the donor organization. This purpose, even though the organization, according to the donor's instructions, otherwise distributes the amount that received one more charity's quid pro contribution. The donor provided for the good of the service of the donor, examine exchange for the contribution. Quid pro contribution from the acknowledgement must include the good faith estimate with the value of the goods, services disclosure, quid pro contributions earlier. Form of acknowledgement. If there is no prescribed format for the written acknowledgement, it must provide enough information, substantial amount with the contribution for the more information publication 1771 charitable contribution and substantially disclosure requirements charitable contribution deduction contribution check cash check with the other monetary gift regardless of the amount the donor must maintain. A bank record written communication from the donor and organization for the donee organization showing with the donor's name, the date, amount with the contribution allocation for the lump sum of the contribution rather than the contribution payroll deduction made through the combined federal campaign or a similar program such as United Way campaign. Written communication must include the name of the donor organization is that the ultimate receiver of the charitable contribution. Contribution of the payroll deduction. An organization may substantiate an employee's contribution for the deduction if from its payroll. A pay stub with the form of W-2 with other documents showing the contribution for the donor organization together with a pledge card or other documentation from the donor organization that shows the name of the contributors for the $250 more documentation must state that the donor organization provides no goods or services for any payroll contribution. The amounts withheld from each of the payments, wages of the taxpayer is treated as a separate contribution. Acknowledgement of a vehicle contribution. If the example the organization received the contribution qualified vehicle for the claimed vehicle for more than $500, the donor or organization required to provide the contemporaries written with acknowledgement to the donee organization can be used completed with the form 1098C with the contribution motor vehicles, boats, and airplane for the contemporaries written acknowledgement. See section 303 notice for the 2005-45, 2005-25 IRB 1286. I've been noticed for the 2005-44 the guidance for the information for the domestic include the temperance written the acknowledgement of the deadline with the furnishing acknowledgement of the donor. Any donee or organization that provides for the contemporaries written acknowledgement of the donor is required to report the donee to report the IRS information contained with the acknowledgement. The report is due the February 28th, March 31st, filing electronically of the year the following year in which the donor organization provides the acknowledgement of the donee. The organization must file the report the copy A with the form 990C. Organization file with the form 1098 and 1098C on the paper should send with the form 1096. Annual summary transmission the unit for usual U.S. information. See the instructions for the form 1096 for the correct filing at location. An organization that requires 250 or more forms the 1090C during the calendar year must file with the forms electronically magnetically specifications with the filing form 1098. C for the electronically mechanically can be found in the publication 1220. The specification filing forms 1097, 1099, 8, 1099, 390, 32, 3921, 3922, 5498. 8935 and W2G electronically rsgov.pub/IRS PDF P11220 PDF. Alright, acknowledgement for contribution to the qualified vehicle claim of the value of the $500 or less. Don't file the form 1090C8C. However, they can use the contentious written acknowledgement under section 175A F80 provided with the donor with a copy C with the instruction of the form 1098C. Generally, the organization should complete with the 1098C with the written acknowledgement of the donor IRS the content with the acknowledgement depending on whether the organization sells the qualified vehicle with any significant intervening with the material improvement. The intent to make the significant intervening with the using a material improvement of the qualified vehicle's purpose prior to the sale. Sells the qualified vehicle to need of individual price significantly because of the fair market value of the garage. She has transferred the need of the individual direct furtherance for the charitable purpose of the organization, relieving the poor, distressed, and underprivileged who are needed in means of transportation. For more information with acknowledgement and see notice 2005-44 or IRS IRB 2025 IRB 2025 IRB AR09 HTML. Alright, material improvement with significant intervening use. The constitutes significant intervening use. The organization must actually use the vehicle in substantial further. The organization regularly conducted the activity. The use must be significant, not incidental. Factors determining whether use the significant intervening depending on the nature, extent, frequency, duration for the purpose include the provision and transportation regular basis for the significant period of time. The significant use is directly related to the training of the vehicle repair. The use does not include the use of the vehicle to provide training of the business skills such as marketing and sales. For example, the significant use include driving a vehicle every day for 1 year that delivers meals to needy individuals if the delivery meals are actively regularly conducted by the organization. Driving a vehicle of 10,000 miles over the first year of the period of delivery meals needed, but the individual delivering meals actively regularly conducted by the organization. Alright, your material improvements include major repairs, additions, improve the condition of the vehicle demand with a significant increase of the value of the material improvement. The improvement that can be funded with an additional aim at organization with the donor of the vehicle. The material improvements do not include cleaning, minor repairs, routine maintenance for the planning of the removal of dents, for the scratches, the cleaning, the repairs, and upholstery, installation, theft, deterioration, device, penalties if charitable organization receive the contribution used motor fuels. Boats and airplanes valued over the $500 may be subject to the penalty and only fail to furnish acknowledgement in the timely manner showing the required information furnishes in false and fraudulent acknowledgement of the contribution. Other penalties may apply with the C-Part over the 2014 General Instruction of the Certain Information Rules. The acknowledgement contained with the certification presumes the fault of the fraudulent with the qualified vehicle sold by other than needed individually will significantly intervene with the use of the material improvement within 6 months of the date of the contribution. The charity sells donated vehicle auction with the IRS won't accept the substantial of the acknowledgement of the charity stating of the vehicle to transfer of the need the individual is significant below the fair market value. Vehicles sold the auction hold the practice significant below fair market value. The IRS won't treat vehicles sold at auction qualifying for this exemption. Or the penalty of false fraudulent acknowledgement where the donor certified the vehicle within transfer of the money with the other property served with the completion of the material improvement, the significant intervening of the use of the donee certifications of the use of the donor certified the vehicle with the transfer of the needed individual significantly below the fair market value. Further, if the donee charitable purpose is larger than $5,000 of the claim value of the vehicle multiplied by 39.6, the penalty will be the acknowledgement relating to the qualified vehicle being sold in the arm's length of the transaction unrelated party of the large cost and gross proceeds with the sale of the sales price stated in the acknowledgement multiplied 39.6%. Qualified intellectual property. A taxpayer who contributes to qualified intellectual property charity may be entitled to the charitable deduction. Additionally, the initial deduction allowed for the year of the contribution. Additional deduction is based on the specified percentage of the qualified donor of the income with respect to the qualified intellectual property. To qualify additional charitable deduction, the donor must provide a notice to the donor of the time of the contribution for the donor intended to treat the contribution from the qualified intellectual property contribution for the purpose of Section 170M or 6050L. Every donor of the organization described in Section 170C is exempt the private foundation defined with Section 509A is not described in Section 170B1F. For the receiver that occur of the net income of the charitable gift, the qualified intellectual property must Form 8899. Form 8899 notices the income donated from intellectual property issued to the donor. Report net income of the qualified intellectual property for the donor property for the IRS due by the last day of the first full month of the following close for the donor tax year. The form must be filled with each of the tax year done with the donee, which was the donated properly produced in that income only in the part of the tax year occurred for the 10-year period from the beginning of the day of the contribution. The tax year does not begin at the expiration of the legal life of the donated property. Qualified donee income. The qualified donee income that is not income that received the curb of the donee properly allocable qualified intellectual property tax year of the donee with which intent within the tax year of the donor would include that is treated with allocated with the qualified intellectual property received that curb earlier in the expiration of the legal life of the qualified intellectual property of the 10-year period belonging being with the date of contribution. Qualified intellectual property. Qualified intellectual property generally any patent, copyright, trademark, trade name, trade secret, know-how, software, similar property, application, registration of such property other than properly contributed with the use of the private foundation as defined in Section 509A that is described in Section 170B1F. The exemption below. Exemption: the following property isn't qualified intellectual property for the purpose of additional charitable deduction. Computer software readily available for purchase of the general public if the subject is not expensive, exclusive of the license, has not been substantially modified. A copyright held by the taxpayer, whose personal efforts created with the property, or whose hands with the base of the property determine the purpose of determining the game of the sales exchange in whole, part is reference and base of the property, hand with the taxpayer, whose personal efforts created the property. Reports of the cash received. The exemption organization received in the course of the activity more than $10,000 cash, one transaction or two more related transactions. The incident isn't charitable contribution must be reported the transaction. IRS from Form 8300 report of the cash payments over $10,000 paid received with the trade or business. Alright, public inspection expectations of applications and annual reports and political organization reporting forms. The following rules apply to the private foundations as well as the tax-exempt organization. Private foundations filing annual returns for the subject to the public disclosure requirements under Section 6104D, including the section of the discussion on public inspection requirements of political organizations following 88, 71, and 88, 72. Annual information return. Exempt organization must make it available for public inspection upon request without the charge of the copy of the original amendment and annual information returns. Each of the information return must be available the date and is required to be filed, determined with regard to the extension is actually filed with whichever is later. An original return does not have to be made available for more than 3 years that has been past the date of the return that was required to be filled with, including the extension was to be filled with whichever is later amended. The return does not have to be made available for more than 3 years that have been past the date of what it was filled. Is what it and the date it was filed. Annual information return is exact copy of the return of forms 990, 990EZ, 990BL, 990PF, 990T, and 1065 amended with the return if any of all the scheduled attachments supporting documents is filed with the IRS. Annual information return does not include the Schedule A Form 990BL and Schedule K1 Form 1065 and Forms 1120 POL. In the case of tax-exempt organization or other private foundation, annual information return does not include the names and address for the contributor for the organization. Alright, caution. Form 990T, also Section 501C3, or organization that filed the 990T must make the return public regardless whether the organization otherwise subject to the disclosure requirement. Section 6104. For example, the churches that aren't required for Form 1023, Form 99, or Form 990 for the IRS, they must file with the 990T with the IRS report on related business taxable income. The churches must disclose Form 990T to the public. State college universities that have been organized by the IRS except for the Section 501A with the organization described in 501C must disclose the Form 990T to the public. However, the state colleges and university that are subject to the tax under Section 511A are solely virtued in Section 511A2B. It hasn't been recognized by the IRS except under Section 501. Organizations described in 501c3 aren't required to make Forms 990T public. Public inspection exemption application. Exemption organization must make it available to public inspection without charge of the publication tax exempt. The application for the tax exemption include the application forms such as forms 1023 and 1024. All documents statement that the IRS require for the organization to file with the form and any statement other than supporting documents submitted by the organization to support application for any letter other than the document issued by the IRS concerning the application. Or the application for the tax for exemption does not include the application for the organization as yet recognized as exempt, and material required to withhold from public inspection. See material required to withhold public inspection. Next, in the case for the tax-exempt organization and private foundation, the name of the address and contributor for the organization, and the application listed before July 15, 1987. And if the organization have a copy of the application July 15, 1987, if there's no prescribed application form, see Regulation Section 3016104 D1 B32 for list of the documents must be made available. or material required within the whole with to be material required to be withheld from the public inspection. Material that required to be withheld from the public inspection, trade secret, patents, processes, styles, other work efforts with withholding requested granted. National defense material unfavorable rulings, determination letters issued with response to the application for the tax exemption, rules and determination letter revocation and modifying the favorable determination letter, tax advance memorandum relating to disapprove the application for the tax exemption of revocation modification of the favorable determination letter, any letter document filed with the issued or by the IRS relating to whether the proposed accomplishment of transaction prohibited the transaction under Section 503. Any letter documentation filed with the issued of the IRS relating to the organization state issued as an organization described in Section 509A or 4942J3, unless the letter or document regulates the organization or application for the tax exemption. Any other letter or the document filed with the issue of the IRS which relates to the organization tax exempt status as an organization described in Section 501C and 501D doesn't relate to the organization application for the tax exemption. Alright, time and place and manner restricted. The annual returns exemption. The application must be made available to the inspection without charge of the organization principal or agent of the district office during the regular business hour. The organization can have the employee present during the inspection. Must allow the individual to take notes freely and photocopy at no charge. The individual will provide for the photocopying equipment. The general regional district officers are those that have been made employees who together are normally paid at least 120 hours a week. If an organization does not maintain a permanent office, must make an application tax exemption annual information returns available to the inspection reasonable location with the choice. It must permit the public inspection with a reasonable amount of the time after receiving the request, and the inspection normally more than 2 weeks, and reasonable time of the day option with a big hand mail with the 2 weeks for the receiving the request. A copy of the application for the tax exemption annual information returns the request in lieu of allowing the inspection organization in charge of the request for the copying the actual postage cost of the only if the requester consents of the charge. Alright, an organization has the permanent office, but no office is very limited hours during a certain time of the year must make its documents available during the periods when the offices that are limited is not available through the organization without permanent office. Furnishing copies. The exempt organization also must provide a copy of all and specific parts with the Schedule 3 most examining the information returned the exemption, the application to anyone who requests the copy, either person was written within its principle of the regional district other than during regular business hours. The individual makes made with the request of the person with the copy provided with the same business request and made unless for the unusual circumstance provides in Regulation Section 3016104 D1 through D1-2. Organization must honor the written requirement request the copy of the document specific parts of the schedule documentation required disclosed. However, the rule only applies if the request is addressed an exempt organization, principal, regional district office sent with address mail, electronic mail with the possessed mail, or private delivery service provided by the IRS. Give the address with whether the copy of the document shall be sent. The organization must mail with a copy of the 30 days of the day it received the request. The organization can arrest the payment for the advance, but must be provided with the copies within 30 days of the day of the receipt. The payment. Alright, fees for copy. The organization can charge the reasonable fee with providing with the copy. They charge no more than copies for the per page rate of the IRS change with the provided with the copy. The IRS charges more copies than the fees listed for the Freedom of Information Act. Fee schedule. Although the IRS charged no fee for the first 100 pages, the organization charged for the fee with all the copies. No commercial request of the Freedom of Information Act. The schedule currently provides a rate at 10 cents per page of black and white and 20% page for the color. The organization can also charge actual postage costs and pays to provide with the copies. Regional and district offices generally have the same rules regarding the public inspection, providing with a copy of the publication annual information for the return with apply with the principal office exemption. The organization apply with the regional district office. However, the regional district office is not required to make its annual information returnable available for inspection to provide with the copy of 30 days after the day of the return is required to be filed, including any extensions and actually filed with the chancellor later. Local subordinate organization. A local subordinate organization exempt for the organization that didn't file for the application for the tax exemption because of the cover with the group of exemption layer. Generally, a local subordinate organization of the exempt organization must, upon request, make available the public inspection, provide copies of the application submitted to the IRS and the certain parent of the organization obtain the group extension letter of the documents which whether they submitted to the central parent organization to include the local subordinate organization and the group exemption letter. However, the central or parent organization submitted for the IRS later for the director or local of the subordinate organization covered by the group of exemption later the local subordinate organization is required to provide the application for the group exemption ruling for the page of the list for the director of the specifically referred to get it. Local subordinate organization must permit the public inspection to comply with the request for the copy made by the person the reasonable amount of the time, normally more than 2 weeks after the receipt of the request made by the person the public inspection of the copy at the reasonable time of the day. In lieu of allowing the inspection, local subordinate organization can mail a copy of the applicable documents for the person requesting the inspection within the same time period within case the organization can charge for the request for the copy. The actual postage costs only if the requester consents and the charge the local subordinate organization received the written copy request for the copy application exemption. It must fill the request at the time in the manner specified earlier. Alright, the requester having the option to request for the central parenting organization principal inspection copy of the applicable application group. The exemption of the material submitted with the central parent organization includes the local subordinate organization group and the rule of the central parent organization submitted to the IRS list of the directory. Local subordinate organization covered by the group exemption letter. It makes a list of the directory available for the public inspection, but is required to provide copies of those pages below. If the director would refer the particular subordinate organization specified the request, the central part organization must fill such request at the time and the manner specified earlier. A local subordinate organization that does not file with the only annual information return because of the affiliate with the central parent of the organization that filed with the group of the return must be required to make available to the public inspection and provide with a copy of the group of the return of the field with the central parent organization. However, the group of the return includes separate schedules for each local subordinate organization, include the group of the return local subordinate organization receiving the request that can omit the schedule of the relaying on the only other organization, including the group of the return. The local subordinate organization must permit public inspection comply with the request for the copy with the made by the person reasonable about the time, normally more than 2 weeks after the receipt of the request made by the person for public inspection copy at the reasonable time today. In lieu of allowing the inspection local, the subordinate organization may mail a copy of the applicable documents to the person requesting inspection for the same time of the period as indicated. The organization can charge with the requester for the copy of the actual postage costs only if the subordinate and only if the requester consents to the charge. If the local subordinate organization requires a written request for the copy of the annual information return, it would fully require to provide for the copy of the group at the return of the time manner specified earlier. The request has the option of requesting the central parent organization and principal office inspection copy of the group of the files, and central parent organization must file with such request at the time and the manner specified earlier. Its organization fails to comply, it may be liable to penalty or penalties later. Alright, making applications annual information returns widely available. Exemption of the organization the request for the copy of the annual information return with the exemption of application make them widely available. However, the making the documents widely available does not relieve the organization making the document available to public inspection. The organization can make the application annual information returns widely available to posting the application annual information return with the internet. The rules of the following follows so that the internet posting with the consideration widely available. See Regulation Section 3016104 D2 and B. If the organization made the application tax exemption annual information returned with the widely available to most inform the individual which are requesting copy of the documents available, including the website address for the internet. If applicable, the request for the made by the person must provide immediately. If the request made with the writing of the notice must be provided within 7 days. Harassment campaign. If the tax exempt organization subject to a harassment contained organization may not fill with the request for the information form. Information see the regulation 3016104 D3. Alright, political organization reporting forms. Form 8871 and 8872 discuss either under the reporting requirements of political organizations are open to public inspection. 8871 for the form 8871, including supporting papers and any letter of the other documentation IRS issued regarding the 8871 to open the public inspection online. IRS Gov, the political orgs or political, and the IRS keyword political orgs. Form 8872 includes Schedule A and B of the opening of the public inspection online with the IRS public orders or keyword public orders. Electronic ink field with the Form 8871 and 8872 are available online in 48 hours after the form has been filed with the Form 8872 are filed with the mails and are available only after they've been filed imaged by the IRS. The form is considered widely available if you provide with an online address with the requester. Additionally, your organization must make a copy of these materials available to public inspection during the regular visit for the organization principal office at each of the regional or district offices having at least 3 paid employees. Alright, penalties. The penalty of the failure allowing public inspection annual returns of $20 each for the day. Failure of the continues the maximum penalty of the person of failure if involved in one more return of $10,000. The penalty of the failure to allow public inspection exemption of application for the $20 each for the daily failure continue. The penalty of the willful failure to allow the public return exemption application for the $5,000 each for the return of the application. That penalty applied for the willful failure to provide copies. Or the penalty of failure allow the public inspection for the political organization, Section 527 of the notice of the 8871 is $20 each for the day of the failure continues. The penalty of the failure to allow the public inspection for Section 527 organization contribution expenditure report form 8872 is $20 each for the day of the failure continues. The maximum penalty to allow the personal failures involved in the one report is $10,000 required. $10,000. Alright, required disclosure. Certain exempt organization must disclose the IRS to public certain information about the activity. Generally, organizations disclose the information entering the appropriate line of the annual return in addition with their disclosure requirements. Solicitation, non-deductible contribution, sales information, so that are available to free of the government. Dues paid by the organization that aren't deductible because they are used for the lobby of the political activists, prohibited tax shelter. Solicitation, non-deductible contributions. Solicitation, contribution, and other payments to certain exempt organizations, including lobbying groups of the political activity committee, must include the statement of the payments for these organizations deductible to charitable contribute to the federal income tax purpose. Statement must include in the funding raising solicitation conspicuous, easily recognizably. Organizations subject to the requirements that an organization must follow these disclosure requirements exempt under Section 501C and other Section 501C1 under Section 501D. Unless the organization is able to receive the tax-deductible charitable contribution under Section 170C, the requirements must be followed among the others. Social welfare organization, Section 501C4, labor trade unions under Section 501C5, trade association, 501C6, social clubs, 501C7, fraternal organization, Section 501C8 and 501C10. However, the four internal organizations described in Section 170C4 must follow the requirements only if the solicitation funds are to be used. Non-charitable purchases not described in Section 170C4. An application organization described in Section 527E, but that include the political campaign committees and the political action committees. Any organization not eligible to receive tax-deductible contribution organization predecessor organization was any time during the 5-year period ending with the date of the fundraising solicitation organization type of which the disclosure requirements apply. Fundraising solicitation disclosure requirements apply with the fundraising solicitation. All allowed the following are true. The organization soliciting funds normally gross to receive $100,000 per year. Solicitation part of the coordinated funding campaign is soliciting more than 10 persons during the year. Alright. The solicitation made with the written printed with the form of the television, radio, and telephone. Penalty of the failure to organize make the required statement with the result with the penalty of $1,000 each for the day of failure occurred with the maximum penalty $10,000 calendar year. No penalty may impose the shown that the failure was due to reasonable cause. If the failure was due to the initial intentional disregard of the requirement, the penalty may be higher than it's not subject to the maximum amount. Alright, surface information service available for free from the government. The central organization offers the several individuals for the solicit money with the information returned. The service could be readily obtained with the free of the nominal fee with the federal government. It must include the same with the information service can be obtained with the same. It must be made in conspicuous, easy to recognize format that the organization make and offer the solicitation sell the information service of the organization effective these exempt under Section 501C, 501D, political organization defined 527E. Penalty provided with the failure to comply with the requirement of failure due to the intentional disregard of the requirement. The penalty is greater than $1,000 each for the day of the failure occurred with $50,000 total. 50% of the total cost of the offers of the solicitation that were made with the organization the same day that fails to meet the requirements. Dues used by lobbying and political activities. Certain exempt organization must notify anyone paying the dues of the organization whether any part of the dues is deductible to public cover that be related to the lobbying and political activities. An organization must provide with the notice of the exempt the tax under Section 501A on one of the following social welfare organizations described in Section 501C4 that isn't a veterans organization. An agricultural horticultural organization described in Section 501C5, a business league of the Chamber of the Commerce Real Estate Board or other organization described in Section 501C6. However, organizations described in 1, 2, and 3 does not have to provide the notice, but they establish with the substantially do provide paid the duplicate deductible anyway, and certain the conditions are met with the foreign information provisions of 9819 and 1998 1 CB 54 7 or later update. Organization does not provide the required notice and may not have to pay with the tax and report the form 990T, but the tax does not apply to any of the amount with Section 527 tax has. been paid by the Form 1120 POL, see Political Organization Income Tax Return earlier. For more information about non-deductible dues, see deduction not allowed for the dues used for the political legislative activities under Section 501c organization later. Alright, prohibited tax shelter transaction. For every exempt organization defined in Section 4965C, part of the prohibited tax shelter transaction required the disclosure of the IRS following the information. Whether such organization is part of the prohibited tax shelter transaction is defined in Section 4965E and defined in any other part of the transaction that is known exempt organization. Party is prohibited tax shelter transaction. Exemption of the organization is part of the prohibited tax shelter transaction organization. Facilities prohibited the tax shelter transaction reason for the tax exempt, tax exempt, tax favored status, and identify the published guidance for the type of the class of the role of the party of the prohibited tax and shelter transaction. See prohibited tax shelter transaction later with further information. The single disclosure made with the organization each of the prohibited tax shelter and transaction disclosure made with the Form 8886T, the disclosure of the tax exempt regarding prohibited tax shelter transaction. Alright, your due date. Generally, an exempt organization described in the first one above the disclosure of the due with May 15th of the calendar year, the following closure of the calendar year may exempt that organization entirely of the prohibited tax shelter transaction the day of the fall of the Saturday, Sunday tax holiday, substitute with the next day, business day. However, the disclosure of this potential listed transaction defined in Section 4965E2 is due before May 15th of the calendar year following the close of the calendar year with the transaction identified with the secretary list of the transaction. The disclosure exempt organization with the described to that is due before the day of the first transaction tax return, where original amendment of the return of the file would reflect the reduction elimination, but the exemption organization reliability applicable federal employment excess of unrelated business income tax delivered directly and indirectly tax consequences tax strategies described in published guidance, the list of the transactions. Or penalty exempt organization that fail with the file with the required disclosure is subject to non-disclosure penalty of $100 each day of the failure to discontinue. Failure to continue with the maximum penalty of any one disclosure of $50,000. Also, the IRS makes the written demand on the exempt organization subject to this penalty. Given the organization reasonable date with the make the disclosure, the organization failed to make the disclosure by the date organization subject to the penalty of $100 each of the day specified by the IRS. The disclosure is made with the maximum penalty with any disclosure of $10,000. Alright, miscellaneous rules. Organizational change of exempt status. Exempt organization change with the legal structure such as the trust for the corporation must be filed a new exemption application for the establishment of the new legal entity with qualified for the exemption of the organization becomes inactive for the period of time that does not constitute being an entity under the law of the state in which is formed. The exemption would be terminated, however, unless they recovered one with the filing exemption will have to continue with the file. The annual information during the period inactive of the organization will have been liquidated, dissolved, and terminated, substantially contracted issued on file your annual return information on the 15th day of the 5th month of the change following the applicable instruction to the form. If your organization amended the article organization internal regulations bylaw, then file with the instruction form 990, form 990EZ, and 990PF with the reporting. These changes, regardless of whether the organization filed the annual information return, you may also report the change of the executive order determination in office. However, the such reporting doesn't relieve the organization reporting of the change of the annual information return for information about informing the IRS termination or merger. See publication 4779. Facts about terminating, merging, exempt organizations. Organizations will report new significant programs, services, significant change without to conduct the programs with significant change of the organizational documents, Form 990, brethren, letter E, executive order determination. Executive order determination no longer sues on letters continuing informing tax exempt status organization that report new services, significant change of the organizational documents. Alright, changing accounting period. The procedure for the organization must follow the change of the accounting period different for the independent organization, for the central organization, for the secret of the group of the change for the organization, independent organization. If an organization is required to file the annual information return, the file with the Form 990T, and change of the annual accounting period with the time filing with the 990T, then either information return or the Form 990T is required to be filed with the organization must notify the IRS by letter with a changed official period. All right, if an organization changed the annual accounting period with the time previous to 10 years within the time limited filing requirement, the organization must file Form 1128 to adopt the change with the retaining the tax year of the timely file the annual information return. Form 990T is appropriate whether they're not filing the information return, but the Form 990T would have otherwise been required for the year. Central organization can obtain the group of the change within the annual accounting period with the subordinate of the organization group of the base for the filing Form 1128 with the service center with the files the annual information return. For more information, see Revision Procurement 7610 1976-1 CB 548 as modified Revision Procurement 79.3 1979 1 CB 48.3 any later updates. Due date Form 1128 must be filed within the 15th day of the 5th month following the close of the short period. Alright, Section 3, 501c3 organizations, which I wanted to get to. Like,